Today, I'm going to show you the secret to making the perfect pistachio cake. This cake, it's light, it's fluffy, it has everything that you want in the perfect cake, and we're doing a homemade pistachio buttercream frosting that just brings the whole thing together. All of your friends and family are going to love this cake. All right, let's get started. We're going to start with 1 cup of unsalted butter. This butter is at room temperature. Now we're going to add 1 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. And lastly, to this mix, before we really mix it and beat everything together, we're going to add our lemon zest. The lemon zest, when it goes into the sugar, is really just going to infuse it. So then we get that lemon flavor, which I know sounds a little bit weird since we're making pistachio cake, but that combination of pistachio and lemon just goes so well together. And somehow the lemon brings out the pistachio flavor. And I forgot to mention we're doing 1 tablespoon of lemon zest. I love using one of these gloves while I'm grating, so then it really prevents you from grating your knuckles in there. Just makes it so much easier. Now we're gonna mix this for right around 3 to 5 minutes. We want it to be really nice and light and fluffy. Now add 3 large eggs. Okay, we're just gonna mix that in. In between mixing, you're going to want to scrape down the sides. We want to make sure that we don't have any hidden pockets of sugar or anything like that. So it's really completely incorporated. Now we're going to add the rest of the wet ingredients. We have our 1/3 cup of lemon juice, 1/4 cup of milk, and 1 cup of unsweetened plain yogurt, or you could use sour cream. I'm out of yogurt, so this is a great substitute. This is really adding the moisture into the cake. I had a few messages coming through on saying that the batter starts to look like it's curdled, like the butter went bad or something like that. It's just how it looks. So when you're mixing this all together, it is going to look a little bit funky, but is exactly what it's supposed to look like. For some reason, how the butter breaks down, it's just a little bit different on different brands. So don't be alarmed if it looks like curdled milk almost. All right, time for all the dry ingredients. So I spared you guys the time and the sound of me grinding up all these pistachios. They do make a pistachio flour that's perfect for that. For this is exactly what we're using it for. Or you could use unsalted whole pistachios, put them in a food processor, and then mix them until they're finely coarse. And here, I'll show you what they should look like. You can see it's a little bit clumpy because they roll with all the oils in them. It will make it clump a little bit, which is fine. But this is the texture we're looking for. And when you're grinding up the pistachios, look at the amounts that I have for the pistachio cake and then the actual frosting too. So then you can do it all at once and you're saving yourself some time. All right, we're gonna measure 1 1/2 cups of finely ground pistachios, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Yeah, don't get the baking soda and baking powder backwards. I've done that with my dyslexia. It's not a fun tasting, whatever you're doing that with, a fun tasting cake. And now 2 1/2 cups of flour. So today I'm using a 1-to-1 gluten-free flour. You can use all-purpose flour. It's gonna taste exactly the same either way. And just shake off the excess. A lot of people ask about using a scale. I don't cook with a scale, or I should say bake with a scale, unless it's something really, really specific, but I just shake it off. Just don't pack it down and you're gonna be good to go. All right, let's mix in these dry ingredients. And again, we just want to scrape down the sides and make sure that we get all that flour in there. We don't want to have a pocket flour of either flour or baking soda, baking powder. It's really light. Now this is a thicker cake batter, but you can tell that the baking soda, baking powder is already activating it and it's making it nice and light. So we have our oven preheated to 350 degrees. You can either use two 8-inch round cake pans or you could use a 9x13. For the cake pans, you can either use a non-stick baking spray. You could also line it with parchment paper, or they also have silicone molds to just pull them out. And we're gonna split the batter in between the two 8-inch. You guys, it already smells amazing. You can smell that lemon, but you can really smell that pistachio. And I'm telling you, this is gonna be your new favorite cake. You could also make cupcakes with these too. This will make about 24. And the bake time would just be a little bit less. It's right on my website for all the details on different options. All right, let's get these in the oven. Let's make the pistachio frosting. So don't freak out on me. We are starting with 3 cups of butter. I'm going to use my stand mixer, so that's why I'm using this bowl, because it does take a little bit to get all this incorporated and to get that nice light fluffy frosting that we're looking for. 4 tablespoons of heavy cream. You may need a little bit more moisture, just depending, but start with 4 tablespoons of the heavy cream. 1.5 cups of ground pistachios. And I'm just going to save a little bit just for decorating. 5 cups of powdered sugar. And then add 1.5 teaspoons of pistachio extract. All right, let's put her on the mixer. When you start mixing the frosting, I like to start off slow so then you don't just have that powdered sugar go flying everywhere. So start the mixer off slow and then slowly build by about 30 seconds to 1 minute. When it starts to incorporate, that's when you can go ahead and crank up that speed. Once you also notice like that the frosting is starting to come together, you're probably going to see in your whipped beater that the butter is maybe caught in there. Go ahead and stop the mixer, push that butter out, and then turn it back out on high. And then this is what you're looking for. We are looking for more of a firm style frosting. It's light, it's fluffy, and it's so buttery delicious. So you may be wondering, why did we make so much frosting? So there's 2 different things to this. The most popular way to make this recipe and how I filmed it on all my socials is doing 4 layers. So we're gonna take these cakes, cut them in half, and then do a layer of frosting in between, and then the outside of the cake as well. That will make the cake taste a little bit more sweet. So if you prefer it to be less sweet, I'm personally a less sweet person, so I'm going to just do 2 layers if I wanted it to be less sweet. So then you're gonna have more of the cake and less of the frosting. If you did that, then you can go ahead and cut the frosting in half, and I have all the instructions below. The cakes are cooled and ready to come out of the cake pan. And I'm gonna go ahead and show the 4 layers because 2 layers, it's really easy. You're gonna cut off the top and then that's it. So the 4 layers, we're doing the exact same thing except for we're gonna cut it in the center. If you have a rotating cake pan, this is gonna make it a lot easier, but I'm just gonna show you the basic way on doing this. We're just trimming off this little hump here so it can be a little bit more flat. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, but then we're going to measure approximately halfway through. And we're just going to work the cake, work the knife, move it around. So I'm just doing this right on parchment paper. Makes cleanup a lot easier. All right, we have our cake dish here. So I like to start with the flat side. So the bottom side of that pan, you can see our cake is so light and fluffy. Go ahead and put that there. All right, now we're going to add our first layer of frosting. And these are a little bit thinner layers. And you can see that frosting is so light. It just pairs perfect with this cake. And I'm gonna push a little bit extra to the sides so then it makes frosting the sides a little bit easier. And it also helps to make up with it not being perfectly even, perfectly cut cake. Okay, and then this layer, I'm placing this side down. Going to press that down a little bit, and we're just going to repeat the frosting. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for the other cake. And then approximately halfway through, we're going to start working the knife, twisting the cake, and just let it do its own work there. Then eventually it'll pop right off. Now we're going to flip this one right upside down as well. Add some of that frosting. You guys, my mouth is watering right now. It smells so good. And I've made it so many times that I know it tastes amazing. But this cake is hands down one of the most popular cakes on my website, on socials, whenever I post it there. And there's a good reason. Everybody loves this cake. All right, last piece. I like to place this side up, so then you have more of that flat top. And this is why I use parchment paper. It's super easy for cleanup. All right, so we're just gonna make sure everything looks good. I don't mind so much of the crumbs on the outside because I'm gonna do a little bit of a thin layer to make it a little bit more, what are they, like the naked style cake where it's a little bit rustic almost. Now you could do a crumb layer first if you really wanted to frost the entire cake and have it completely covered, or if you're using this for an occasion where you want it to look a really certain way. So a crumb layer is you're taking the frosting, it's a really thin layer, and you're putting this around the entire cake to hold down the crumbs. Because you'll see that you're gonna get some automatically in your frosting. The nice part with this one is because of the pistachios, you can't really tell. And if you're not really worried about that, throw the frosting on and you're good to go. It has nothing to do with taste, it's all on looks. I like to personally put the frosting on top and then feed it down. Everybody has their own favorite technique. Okay, now let's get some on top. You can see the outside is more of that naked layer style. And what that means is it's just really minimal frosting on the outside, especially if you're gonna do 4 layers. I mean, sometimes frosting all the outside, that can be a lot, even though the frosting is amazing. And I'm just going to do little swoops on top. If you want to pull out your piping bag, you can always dress this up. I love rustic style looking cakes. And then just do a swoop across the edge. Now, lastly, decorating. So I saved a little bit of those ground pistachios here. And I'm just going to sprinkle those on top. It kind of brings out the swoops that you did too. Anytime you're serving like a dessert or whatever, I like to put something out that, you know, like putting the pistachios on there so then people know it's a pistachio cake. All right, I am dying to have a piece. This is called breakfast. We are filming early today. This is breakfast of champions right here. All right, it's time for the taste test. It is so good. It's light, it's fluffy, it's moist. That buttercream frosting, that is money right there. It is so good.